good morning everybody, and welcome to the gentle mist that is just coming up over the eastern horizon here in the northeast corner of beautiful South Africa. The dawn has broken, the sun has yet to peep up over the horizon, and you are on a live morning safari here in the iconic Kruger National Park. My name is James Hendry. On camera today is David Eastaugh, recently returned from leave, and I'm afraid it's going to be my ugly mug that you're staring at for the next 3 hours, well, unless we can find some animals for you to look at, which I truly hope we will. The other vehicle, I'm afraid, was destroyed by David and Sam yesterday evening. Well done, David and Sam. It's not the vehicle so much as the actual camera that was destroyed in an incident with a combretum tree, where the combretum tree had a victory and the camera an inescapable loss. Now, by saying you're on a live safari, what I mean is, of course, that you are on a live safari, which means we'd very much like to talk to you through the course of the next 3 hours. That would certainly make my job easier. If you were to initiate conversations with me, any questions that you might have about Africa, South Africa, perhaps you're planning to travel down here at some time soon, well, send us some questions through about that and I would be happy to ask them. Otherwise, send through your questions and comments about the magnificence of the African wilderness that we are about to explore for the next 3 hours together. Hashtag SafariLIVE if you're on Twitter, or questions at wildearth.tv if you're on the email. Above me, I hear the massing sounds. That's quite interesting. I don't know if you can get those, Dave. Those are European bee-eaters, everyone. And they're going north. They're leaving us. They've decided that's it for the summer. And off they go. Huh. That is really amazing. They don't normally fly that high at all. And I truly think that this is, that's it. They've probably decided that they've had enough, and now they're going to head north for the winter. Well, our winter, and up in the northern hemisphere summer. They'll be going into Europe for the pleasantries of the, perhaps the valleys of the Rhone valleys and the wine valleys of France, the pleasant beer valleys of Bavaria, and up into the gentleness of the English countryside. That is where the European bee-eaters are going. Meanwhile, we're knuckling down for a beautiful winter, and we'll see what happens. It is, of course, very pleasant temperature. It's not cold at all, despite the fact that I am wearing a jersey, and now I can't sit down properly because I'm stiff and sore. That's another story. But it's about 62 degrees Fahrenheit. That is 17 degrees Celsius, so it's actually very pleasant out here. And our plan this morning is going to be to head down, I think, towards the southern boundary, see if we can pick up some tracks of Karula. If we can't pick up any tracks of her, then we'll probably drive towards the hyena den. No sign of lions last night, none of them calling. Sam, of course, had the Nkahuma Pride at Buffelshoek Dam yesterday, and then, of course, the incident, now infamous incident of the combretum bush occurred, and those lions disappeared through some incredibly thick bush, popped out the other side, and went onto Torchwood, and that was the last we saw of them. And just to just to make things doubly easy, it would seem that we're only operating on the Vuyatela mast, which means basically we'll be doing laps of quarantine clearings for the next 3 hours. That should be enormously fun, don't you think, Dave? Yes, excellent stuff. Woo! I've no doubt Connor is on the problem, and if he isn't, I'm going to go and haul him out of his bed immediately. But I'm sure he's on the problem, and I suspect all the problem is that it's probably run out of batteries. Connor, has it run out of batteries? So let's see what else we can find. There's a beautiful smell about the morning. Ah, fresh. The dew is just rising off the grasses, as are some of the aromatic oils that make up many of the herbs and wild flowers that we get here. No doubt the butterflies will soon start flying as the sun peeps up over the horizon. Now, you're going to have to tell me, everybody, if we remain within signal range of the Vuyatela mast, I think we can go down here. I think we should be all right there. Maybe not. Maybe we should go to the hyena den. Let's go to the hyena den, see what we can find there. Brenty is out tracking, so he will go down towards where Karula has been crossing to and fro across the southern boundary, and maybe he'll have some luck there. Let me just hail him on the radio. Brent Leo Smith, come in. Let me put him on live so you can hear him. There he is, you can hear him. We are only operating on the Vuyatela mast at the moment. I was planning to check the southern boundary for tracks of that errant female leopard. I'm now going to head towards the hyena den.
Okay, copy.
Yeah,
to change batteries, anything at Gari?
No, I would tell you what I would do though, is just go and have a quick look there. Remember when we gave it a kick that one time, it sort of came up again. I don't know if maybe that's the same problem.
Copy, en route.
So Brent will go and check the other tower. We'll see what happens. Now, by tower, what I'm talking about, of course, is the fact that when the picture of my face as we drive along goes out of an aerial in the back of this car, and it goes to a tower, and then into the final control, and then out to where you happen to be sitting in your living room, or, well, it's a Sunday, so you won't be in your offices. And at the moment, we have 3 towers, one at Arathusa, one sort of on a high point, we've actually got 4 now, one on a high point on Djuma, one at the final control, one at Cheetah Plains. Now, the one on the high point on Djuma is down, which means we have to stay quite close to the final control, otherwise we lose signal. But fear not. And it would seem that there are a number of you that are enjoying the fact that I have to do 3 hours of this. I'm wondering if, well, I thank you for your support. Let's hope that it is, it's meant with the sincerity that you are going to enjoy my company for 3 hours, as opposed to laugh at me as I try and find things to talk about as we lap quarantine 346 times. I suppose we could do some timings, David. How fast do you think we could do quarantine?
I reckon under 4 minutes.
Under 4 minutes. I think we'd do a lot faster than that, Rusty. We might get David to run quarantine clearings. That's a very nice question here. Daniel, you're in Ohio, and while we drive towards the hyena den, one of my favorite spots on the reserve, a little bit of background to the Kruger you'd like. First of all, you want to know who Mr. Kruger was. Well, Mr. Kruger was the president of the first Transvaal Republic. Now, South Africa has a complicated, conflicted, and difficult history, but basically the Transvaal Republic was this particular area and quite a lot of what is now South Africa off to the west of where we are now, up onto the Highveld. And his name was Johannes Paulus Kruger, otherwise known as Paul Kruger, and it was supposedly his brainchild that brought about the formation of the Kruger National Park. In actual fact, he seemed to be more of a biltong or jerky eater and hunter than he was a conservationist, but it is his name that has been attached to this iconic national park. Now, it was originally 2 separate parks that were, I'm just checking for some tracks here, and they were gazetted, I think in 1910 the first one was, and that was called the Sabi Park, and then north of us the Shingwetsi Park not too long after that. Then in 1926 they were joined together after the union of South Africa, and they were formed into the Kruger National Park as we know it today. So it's been going since 1926, so 10 years off its 100th year, but since then it has expanded. And so, Daniel, it used to be sort of 1.8 million hectares. Now, if we convert that to imperial, we go by 2.4. 1.8 times 2.4 is an extremely difficult sum to do at this time of the morning, in fact, at any time of the day. But basically, it was almost 4 million acres. And then a whole lot of private farms on the western fringes, which is what we're part of now, joined into the Kruger National Park in 1992. So that's relatively recently. And it took the greater Kruger National Park up to 2.2 million hectares, or about 5 million acres. Then, late in the year 2000, or I think it was actually around 2001, the fences between the Kruger Park and Mozambique to the east, and a park in Mozambique called the Limpopo National Park, were dropped. And then the fences north into Zimbabwe, into a park in Zimbabwe called the Gonarazu, were opened. And instead of 5 million acres, it was expanded to 3.5 million hectares, and that's 5 million, at least 8 million acres. So that's what we're sitting in now. That's a brief sort of history of the area. 8 million acres of untrammeled wilderness, which means that the animals can come and go freely as they choose in that entire 8 million acres of expanse across 2 national borders, private land, government land, and all sorts of land in between. So it's quite an arrangement. We are on the western fringes, like I say, in a group of private reserves called the Sabi Sands. And the Sabi Sands, again, is a collection of privately owned land. And we're on a little piece of it called Juma, about 1,200 hectares. And again, I'm doing my maths, which works out at roughly 3,000 acres. And then we traverse also an area to the west of us called Arathusa, and the east of us called Cheetah Plains. And that's basically how we operate in this area. I hope that makes sense. I could draw you a map. I might do that if I found nothing else to show you. But I must warn you, Daniel, that I am the world's most horrendous cartographer, indeed, most horrendous drawer and writer in general. Oh, that's very nice to find. Now, normally I would just drive past something like this simply because I didn't want you to see it. But some deeply cretinous human being has dropped a beer can here, which I'm going to have to get out. Now, I am, of course, in a state of great stiffness because Stefan Winterboer, our erstwhile Chief Operations Officer, gave me a workout to do the other day. It was called the Superman workout. And the Superman workout was clearly meant for Superman because it has made me feel as though, well, it's made me feel like my legs are made of some kind of steel-infused jelly, and it is deeply painful to move in any shape, way, or form using any part of the bottom half of my body. So if I do look like I am, I'm walking with steel rods in my legs, that is because that is how it feels. There is the sun, David. Let us quickly show our viewers the sun. Oh dear, we can't. We don't have any view of it now. Never mind. Let me find you a decent view of the sun. It's come up, peeped up over the eastern horizon, and no doubt it will shortly begin to warm our faces. We shall feel its gentle rays on our face. And as I was saying the other day during the sunset, I do hope that many of you, or if not all of you, will be able to one day feel the African sun on your face. I don't suppose it feels that much different from the sun wherever you are in the world, but to feel the first rays of the day on your face in an area like this of such magnificent natural beauty is well, it's a rare privilege, and one that I am very fortunate to experience on a daily basis. We're not too far from the hyena den now. Rebecca, I'm assuming that we still have some signal. Rebecca is directing this morning. Oh. Oh, interestingly, we have signal from Cheetah Plains, which is entirely superfluous, but at least we have it. Thank you very much, Donna. You say I am your Superman. Well, that's very kind. I don't know about that. Red, you say no pain, no gain. Well, I do hope that there is a bit of gain from this exceptional state of pain that I find my buttocks in. It's my buttocks mainly that are in deep pain. Donna, you say New England, the state in which you live, is 186,000 square kilometers. Is Kruger bigger than this? No, it isn't. But Donna, are you sure it's not 186? No, that sounds about right. 186,000 square kilometers? No, it's not anything like that size. The Kruger, it's very easy conversion from hectares to square kilometers. It's 3.5 million hectares, which is 35,000 square kilometers. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's bigger than Israel, for example. It's bigger than Wales. And I can't picture where New England is or how big it is, but I think there are one or two of the smaller eastern states in America that are smaller than the Kruger Park. 35,000 square kilometers is what the Greater Kruger National Park is. So, Donna, I'd be actually very interested. I know I have checked this out before and I've forgotten. There are certainly some of those small eastern states that this park is larger than. I can't picture where New England is, though. I think it's on the east coast, isn't it? Oh, New England consists of all of those smaller states. So that would be why it's so much bigger than I thought it was. It's actually very interesting. Right, we're approaching the hyena den, everybody. With any luck, we'll be able to look at some wildlife rather than my mug as I yak. Please be here, hyenas, please. Don't let me down. You've been so good to me up to this point. Seems to be something of a stony silence. This is not very good news, everyone. Hello? Oh, listen. Listen carefully, see if you can hear. That's a ground hornbill. The female, slightly higher pitched. That's the male. And then all around us is this. Here comes a hyena. I don't want to move. Let's just see what happens. She might come and call the babies out. So I know that the vehicle is in your way a little bit. But let's just wait and see if she doesn't come and call the youngsters out. Oh, don't go away. That's it. Yeah? Yes, come on. Come this way. Just listen to the dawn chorus this morning. It is quite phenomenal. Doves. Larks. Robins. Orioles. Starlings. Drongos. Brent Smith yakking on the radio. And look at the way the light catches that grass. Isn't that too special? So that hyena female seems to be just by... Oh, here she comes. She's right there. Sorry, I don't mean to give you a fright. Looks like Madam to me. Both her ears in a bit of a state. Madam is the matriarch, for those of you who are perhaps watching for the first time. She seems to be doing something of a perimeter search. I don't know why she isn't coming to call out her babies. Most of whom will be inside the holes here, I'm assuming. But otherwise, not much in the way of mammal life. Let's sit here for just a few minutes. I can just see her wandering off through the bush there. It is quite odd. You can also hear a bearded woodpecker hitting on a tree. Ta 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 ta. Right, let's just go around the corner here, just to the other side of the mound, and see if anything isn't over there. Perhaps some hyenas resting. Lael, you're in Washington. I want to know about bats. You say a viewer asked about bats the other day. Do we get bats here or bat caves? Well, we do actually, Lael. We get many different kinds of bats here. Free-tailed bats, vesper bats, tomb bats, fruit bats. Sorry about that, Dave. Not vampire bats, and yes, indeed, in some places they will live in caves, but not in this particular area. Very few caves in this particular area, very few rocks at all, actually, because it's such an ancient landscape that most of the rock has weathered away. So it's not quite as old as the Kalahari sands up around sort of Botswana and the Okavango Delta, where you cannot find a stone. But certainly it's not a rocky area this at all. And so there are no caves, but the bats live in trees, they'll live in rocky overhangs in some of the drainage lines and that sort of thing. But many, many kinds of bats, very difficult to identify. Brent had a very nice experience last night, well, 2 nights ago. They were nice for some people. I don't suppose many would have found it very nice. The bat was on his bed, and he and Jamie captured the hapless creature, wrapped it in a towel, and then identified it, because apparently it landed on their bed, not so much because it wanted to sleep there, but because it flew into the fan, the ceiling fan, and was knocked senseless onto the bed. Anyway, it had a very pale white front, looked like a tomb bat, but apparently it was some kind of, I forget exactly what it was, but lots of different kinds of bats, yes. There are no hyenas here at all. Let us not waste this glorious morning. I think let's move out of here, everyone. I'm not sure the status of the towers at the moment, but if they are getting better, perhaps it's time to try and see if we can't head down towards where maybe Karula is going to bring us her babies. Now, we did find her tracks yesterday morning on Tracking Team. Jamie and I went out with Connor and we found her tracks going back south into Little Gowrie, which is the reserve just to the south of where we are. And as I was explaining to you about the private property here, we have a traversing area that covers now about 6,000 acres or so, but we can't obviously cross outside of the boundaries of where our traversing agreements are. I'm just trying to find out here. There's another vehicle suddenly pulled in. Oh, it's the landowner. Let us quietly excuse ourselves. It's like seeing royalty. Ellen, you want to know about these grasses and these special feathered chloris grasses that we have been seeing a lot of. And you want to know if it's got to do with the autumn or the fall, as you call it. Ellen, it doesn't. Well, I mean, I suppose it does. It does in so much as at this time of the year, as we go into the winter time, yes, the grasses have finished putting up their culms and their inflorescences, and the seeds are all out, and the seeds are probably at their greatest sort of expression at this time of the year. But I think one of the reasons that it's all come up now is that we did have that late rain. And I think that late rain has resulted in a lot more grass seeds coming up than would have otherwise. Just slightly different routes on the way back down to the south. So that particular grass is called feathered chloris or Chloris roxburghiana. which I think is a marvellous name. Roxburghiana. Sounds like a police song. You know who the police are, David? Before your time?
A little bit.
Oh, dear. Police was, you've heard of Sting, have you?
Of course.
Yes, he was the bass player for the Police. And the singer, obviously. Now, Vernie, we saw Madam there, the matriarch of that clan, and you want to know what kind of behaviour she exhibits to have become the matriarch of the clan. There is a secondary den there that there's nothing at. Vernie, it's very simple, really. She's just more violent, basically. She's able to dominate the others it kills. That's one thing. But secondly, she is born into it. And you say, who was the matriarch before her? Well, we don't know. I don't know because I wasn't here when she took over, and we've only fairly recently discovered that she is the matriarch of this clan. But she would have inherited it most likely from her mother. And it's very much the same as with human beings. If you grow up in a state of privilege and you grow up as royalty, for example, you grow up with a sense of entitlement and a sense of dominance over, well, the peasantry, if you like. And that's exactly how it is with the hyenas. And at the other end of the scale, the peasantry grows up with a sense of inferiority. And that's exactly how it happens with hyenas. The young hyenas grow up, sorry, they're just checking a little bit here. So the young hyenas not born to matriarch, born to lower-ranking females, will grow up with a sense of inferiority. They are highly unlikely to try and challenge for leadership unless they, well, even if they're larger, even if their testosterone levels are higher, perhaps, than some of the more dominant females. So it's quite interesting. I think there is a deeply psychological element to it. And what is interesting is that the complicated nature of hyena social structure, which rivals what we call Cercopithecine apes, which are baboons and monkeys, their social structure rivals theirs in complexity. And because of that, hyenas are actually massively intelligent, probably more so than any of the other mammals out here that aren't primates. And I think that's really quite interesting. And by intelligent, of course, it's not intelligence as we know these days is not a narrow definition. It's not your ability to do advanced calculus in your head. There are lots of different kinds of intelligence. But in terms of problem solving and social problem solving, hyenas are really quite amazing. Just listening here. There are some wild dogs at Simbambili, so let's stay in this area. You know how far wild dogs will run, and they might come back this way. Okay, and then there was a question about the bite force of hyenas, or what animal has the most powerful bite force in South Africa. Tom, it is obviously the hyena. Well, as far as the carnivores out here, you don't want to be bitten by a crocodile, though. A crocodile apparently, as a sort of slamming down force, has got a more powerful bite than a hyena. But in terms of the mammals, it would be the hyena. There's a waterbuck herring its way across the road. That would be our first mammal, David. I hope it doesn't hide from us because we haven't seen any mammals at all. Well, we did see, I suppose we did see the matriarch briefly. He's gone. Can you believe it? Waterbuck bull disappeared into the bush there. Clearly not wanting to support my 3-hour solo drive. It's very unkind of him. I suppose he cares, really. Now, it is, of course, Sunday morning here, which means, well, it means nothing out here. It's exactly the same as it is on Monday or Saturday. There's no real sort of change in the day. There's no real sort of change in the atmosphere. And I really quite enjoy that. I quite enjoy the fact that I don't have to have that Sunday night feeling that lots of people get in the world, where they get the Sunday night blues. They have their Sunday night meal in preparation for either school the next morning or a fun time in the traffic. And that's one of the major reasons, actually, I do this job, is that there's no Sunday night blues feeling. It used to be my worst thing in the world. Let's have a look at some of this feathered chorus. Here's this feathered chorus we were chatting about. Let me just open it up a bit, David, so that the light might catch the moisture thereupon. Isn't that lovely? It is the feathered chorus, Chloris roxburghiana. Now what you can see there, sorry, let's just have a slightly extended look there. What have you got? There's some seeds. Those are the seeds. These are called orms. Those are called orms. And those orms allow the seeds to be transferred, David, in the wind. Off they go. The feathered chorus. Now, Lucy, an interesting one from you. You're in South Bend, Indiana, and very kindly, first of all, thank you for your... very good. Very kindly, thank you for your updates on the Djuma Dam cam. You said that there were some hyenas calling earlier this morning. That is fairly typical, of course. And you also want to know if this late flush of grasses and the associated seeds would have delayed the onset of the bird migrations. The answer, Lucy, is not substantially, but maybe a little. Now, that is called hedging your bets, because I don't know for sure. But, David, there's a duiker. Can you see it? Look at the light on him. Look. Little duiker, you. Oh, that light is too beautiful. Look at that. She's just looking for very concentrated foods to eat. New shoots, buds, maybe the odd seed. And even in one or two cases, nestling birds a duiker has been seen eating. That's just really lovely. Just going about it Sunday morning in a very peaceful manner, hoping desperately that there isn't a leopard lurking just behind her, about to leap on her and, well, ruin her Sunday. I think in this case, that isn't the case. So, Lucy, sorry, back onto the birds. What makes a bird disperse or decide to go north for the winter, of course, or in your case, south for the winter, is a few things. There are a few things that do it. One is day length. As the day length starts to change, so the birds will start to sort of look to where they're going to migrate, and they start to orientate themselves towards where they're going to migrate. They build up the fat reserves and then they fly. The other thing that does make them fly is food resources. So as food resources drop to a certain level, they will go off. So while the day length has not changed, well, the day length has changed, but while the change in day length hasn't changed, and therefore the triggers that will set in motion the activity of migration haven't changed, yes, I think that you will find that the late flush of grass has probably delayed a little bit the onset of the migration. Remember, however, that it's largely insect eaters that migrate. I can't think of any seed eater, specific only seed eater, that migrates. So it is largely the insect eaters that migrate, but the late rains would have had the same effect on the insects as they have on the grasses. There would have been a late flush of insects. There's certainly been a very late flush of a huge plethora of butterflies, and so I think that would have delayed the departure of some of the birds slightly. But, you know, we're into the sort of middle parts of April now, and most of the birds seem to have gone. The woodland kingfishers departed about 2 or 3 weeks ago, most of them. And what else is gone? The Wahlberg's eagle left a long time ago, and so they didn't wait around, but of course they are not insect or seed eaters, and so they would not have been delayed or sort of inspired to hang around longer because of the late rain, so they would have disappeared regardless. And then of course we had that wonderful European bee eaters calling high, high up today, and then they went off. And Megan, you're interested in feathered chloris and whether it's a good grazing grass, and do any animals strongly favour it? There are a few chloris species that are strongly favoured by animals. I think you'll find that its growth pattern upon termite mounds will mean that the leaves are chosen by many species. But remember that this particular piece of the grass is not good grazing. So the structural material that makes up what we call the culm, or the stalk of the grass, is not good for grazing. And so very few animals will actively select that bit. Yes, if you watch elephants graze, they'll take the whole stalk, but that's mainly for the nutrition and the protein that are in the seeds that you can see over there. But there's also lots of structural stuff in there that is very difficult to digest. What an animal looks for in a grass, of course, is the leaves that grow underneath it. And I don't think that they have very high leaf production, these chloris grasses. Here is a very fresh elephant dung that I don't believe we drove over. In fact, we did. Go ahead, Brent. We did drive over, or around it. This is very exciting.
I'm going to make my way there, stand by probably about 1.5 kilometers at the moment.
I don't know if you can hear, Brent. So the pack of dogs is about 1.5 kilometers away from the northern boundary, which is over behind us, sort of over the top of that piece of dung. And so I think what we're going to do is head towards the northern side there. That tower is back up and running, thanks probably to Connor or Brent, I'm not sure which. So let's go up towards the northern boundary and see if we cannot find something like a pack of wild dogs herring across the boundary. It was Connor and Alex who fixed the tower. Thank you, Connor and Alex. Alex, of course, an intimidating Russian fellow from Moscow, who, well, he probably terrified the tower into function. Okay. It's absolute nonsense. He's actually a hell of a nice fellow. So we're going to make our way towards the sort of northwestern corner of Djuma via Zoe's Road and Impala Plains, if it's all the same to you. We'll see what we can find there. Certainly have been a lot of elephants around of late, so I'm hoping that we might find some elephants. I'd really like to see the wild dogs. We're definitely due a visit from them very soon. In this clearing there must be some form of animal life, surely. No? 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 Devoid. Hello, James Bear, while we drive through this apparently barren landscape. You're interested in perhaps in mythical creatures that perhaps the local people talk about. There's only one that comes to mind. I guess there are a few throughout Africa, but one in South Africa that remains as a mythical creature, and he is called the Tokoloshi. And James Bear, the Tokoloshi's most famous trait, of course, is the fact that he has a meter-long penis, which is quite an impressive feat given that he is only about a meter, I think he's about a meter and a half tall. And so that's his most impressive trait. And he is known as a ravager, of course, with an appendage like that. And for a long time, I mean, he was blamed for all sorts of evils and bad things that happened to people in the night. Let's just have a look at this amazing mist now rising off the landscape. There it is. That's stunning. And that mist, everybody, is, I've no doubt, the dew now starting to come off the vegetation as the sun rises. Isn't that pretty? That's to the southeast of us. And I will get to your question, Patty, quick about the sun in the Sabi Sands, because it's a very interesting question that you have asked. Let me just quickly finish with James Bear's inquiry. So the Togolosh led people for many years to put their beds on bricks because he's too short to then get onto the top of your bed. And so that was the main one. I mean, there are various other kind of lesser-known legends about water mongoose that can morph into various things, various therianthropic animals, in other words, animals that can assume human form and vice versa, but nothing so famous as Utogoloshi. A dreadful fellow is Utogoloshi. Now, Patty in Michigan, you came out here, you say, and you got burnt by the sun, and you say it is therefore different from the sun in Michigan, and is that an ozone difference? Patty, I had exactly the same experience, not in Michigan, but I went to Greece about 2 years ago, and I didn't put on any sunscreen at all. It was in the middle of their summer, and I didn't get burnt in the slightest, and I couldn't understand it. And I think rather than a difference in ozone, Patty, I think it's got to do with the height of the latitude. So you're obviously a lot farther north than we are south, if that makes sense. So we are closer to the equator than you are there, and I think that makes a huge difference to the amount of sun that we get here. I absolutely agree with you, though. The sun here is a lot harsher than it is in the northern climes of Europe. It's possible that there's an ozone difference, but I don't think that that's the major sort of differentiator. I think it's probably the latitude, and therefore the angle at which the sun hits you in the midsummer. So I think that would be my answer, Patty. But absolutely, it was noticeable to me how in Greece I went golden brown as opposed to out here going bright puce red if I stick in the sun for too long without putting on some form of protection. And it also just feels harsher on the skin here. It absolutely, in the middle of summer here, that sun feels like a welding torch to the face sometimes. Certainly at the height of this summer, which was the hottest we've had, apparently, in recorded history. You hear that every time you get a hot summer, but it was definitely a very hot summer with temperatures in excess of 45 degrees Celsius on some days, which is, well, that's just beastly. That's about 110, 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So we had a few days like that, Patty. Yeah, and you just don't seem to get that impression, even when it gets really hot in the northern hemisphere. Michigan, I'm sure, gets probably up to about 100 degrees every so often, but you won't feel that same intensity of the sun that you do over here. I also, the only other kind of mythological creature that I know the story, or whose story I know well, is that of Orvosi. And Orvosi is otherwise known as the water mongoose. And I have told this story before, but I will tell it again simply because I cannot find a mammal to show you, or a bird indeed. Orvosi is the water mongoose, everybody, and you will find that there are people all over South Africa whose uncles, it always seems to be an uncle, who has seen this thing take place. You will never find anybody who's first-hand seen what I'm going to tell you now. Orvosi is a great stealer of chickens in the night. And what it does, I think, Alan, you wanted to know about the mongoose. Uvusi, the water mongoose, is a stealer, a thiever, a pilferer, a pillager of the chicken coop at night. And what Uvusi does is he goes into the chicken coop in the night time. David, have you heard this story? No. He goes into the chicken coop in the night time, and rather than kill a chicken in the traditional way by grabbing it with the canines and then dragging it off, what he does is stealthily creep under the chicken coop fence in the night, turn his bottom to face the fowl that he wishes to catch, and then what he does is lift his tail, everybody, and he has the astonishing ability to then completely invert his rectum so that it looks like a ripe tomato. Now, this ripe tomato, of course, is very appealing to a chicken, and as the chicken comes to investigate the ripe tomato and pecks at the ripe tomato, so the rectum re-inverts itself. And what that does, of course, is to draw the chicken's head into the bottom of the water mongoose, and it is then able to make its way fast away from the chicken coop, the chicken, head and all, stuck in its bottom, and it will then eat it in the traditional way. Now, that is the story, apocryphal as it may be, of Uvusi, the water mongoose. And like I say, you will never find anybody who's seen it, but you will find many, many people whose uncles swear blind that they have seen Uvusi, the water mongoose, invert his bottom, suck in a chicken's head, and then make off with the chicken clucking as it is attached firmly to the bottom as they run back through the bush, chased no doubt by the owners of the chicken. An amazing story. David, you've never heard that before?
No, it's charming.
It is charming, yes. There are various other creatures. I know that in Zulu mythology is very rich, but I'm just not very knowledgeable on it. A water spirit is a particular one which can be a harbinger of evil or of good. But I don't know enough about it to tell you more than that. Lots of elephant evidence all over the road here. Tracks, dung. I wish we could find an elephant. We're just going to go all the way up now, the boundary on our western fringe, or the eastern fringe of Simbambili, because that's where the dogs are. And Steve, you're interested if any animals use the elephant dung. Steve, absolutely they do. Steve, elephant dung is an ecosystem all on its own. It will be eaten, first of all, by young elephants, because that's how they line their guts. It's very important that a young animal that eats grass lines its gut with the bacteria necessary in order... Oh, there's some elephants as we speak. Look at that. All right, let's go in there. Steve, so young elephants will eat it. Hippo eat elephant dung. Termites eat elephant dung. Dung beetles eat elephant dung. All right, let's just sit here. This elephant is coming towards us, which is quite interesting. He took one look at us and decided he was going to come and give us a visit. So we'll just watch him quite carefully. It's a big bull. Now you have an interesting choice here, and your choice is, do we let him approach? Or do we move away and increase the space? Because what we don't want him to do is think that he can take a chance with us. Now, he smells like he's in must to me, which means that he's in his time of mating. He is in must. You can see he's got urine dripping between his back legs. I'm going to leave him for now. Because we're in a clearing, we can move off quickly if we have to, but he's definitely coming to investigate us. Isn't that an amazing picture? He's talking to us. And he's just actually having a look. I don't feel any sense of threat from him. He just came to have a look at us. That is just too wonderful. Wasn't that amazing? It's an incredible experience. Go ahead. And the smell. There's another elephant there too. Copy, thanks, Brent. I am on Impala Road. The dogs are heading this way, everybody. They're at One Eye Pan. Yeah, I'm on Balanites, that clearing there. Elephants shouting all over the place. We're not too far from the area where the wild dogs might pop out. So that was a wonderful experience. So I was just describing the smell. Dave, I don't know if you can think of a better way to describe it, but I feel it's like it's kind of a sickly, sweet, leathery smell.
Pretty accurate.
Sickly, and it is kind of sickly sweet. Just an amazing response from him, though. We drove into the clearing, and he decided that he'd come and have a look. Now, people will tell you, and in some cases it is true, that a musk bull elephant like that is aggressive. He's not aggressive. He is easily irritated, I suppose, because his testosterone levels are through the roof, and he's feeling a sense of frustration. And so it was just fascinating the way he came to have a look at us. But I didn't at any stage feel threatened by him. He didn't sort of shake his head or flop his trunk over his tusks or come towards us quickly. He just came to sort of have a look, and then he walked off. Dave, how close was he? He was about 3 feet. He was about a meter away from us at one stage. Wonderful sighting. All right, what we're going to do, everybody, is head up towards One Eye Pan, which is in Simbambili, on the boundary of Triple M. And Wicked and you say that you feel so fortunate to share these moments with everybody. Well, I feel precisely the same, I must say. And I get to do this every day. It's just a tremendous, tremendous privilege. He's probably about 30 years old, I imagine. He's older than you, Dave. He's unfortunately not older than me, though. You can see him streaming from his temporal glands between his eyes and ears, and all that is an indication of a little bit of stress. And he will be stressed by the amount of testosterone that he has in his body at the moment. And Eileen, you're interested in whether the other bull is also in must and whether they were sizing each other up. Yes, the bulls will certainly size each other up all the time. Is the other one in must? I don't know. Is he irritated? I would say absolutely not. He would have come this way and initiated some kind of a challenge. There are some very irritated elephants at the moment. The other side of this thicket in front of us. I think Brent just encountered them. In fact, sorry about that. We're back, everybody. I do apologize. I am going to throw Alex the Russian under the bus here because I know he's not watching right now. They were fixing something on the car yesterday and forgot to change one of the infinitely complicated plugging arrangements that go on underneath here and that's all it was. So very simple problem that we've now sorted out. We have power to the camera, we have power to David and his fingertips, and so we're heading back towards the western fringes of this reserve. The wild dogs have turned south. They're on Arathusa at the moment, So there is a good chance that we're going to be able to get to see them. We're going to head back towards where those elephants were, and then we'll get an update from there as to where the dogs are on Arathusa. And that is the general plan. I do apologize for our absence. Let me just get an update from Brent quickly. Brent, come in. I think Brent is probably on the other channel now, trying to get an update from them. Let me see if I can get hold of somebody on Arathusa. Now what happens, of course, is that once wild dogs go onto an area like Arathusa, so there will be 568 people who tried to get into the sighting. So we'll have to wait when we get a bit closer as to whether we can get a space. I suspect it will be in a little while, though, before we're allowed to get in there, unless they come across here. Now, many of you were asking, or some of you were asking about the history of the area and how it works, and basically the history is inexorably what's the word I'm looking for? Inexorably. There we go. Inexorably linked to the private property laws that we have here and the traversing agreements between the different private landowners. So while there were some birds, but they sort of flying. There we go. Very nice long-tailed shrike or magpie shrike. And while we look at him, basically what happens is not everybody can go everywhere. And that means that if the dogs come on to where we are on Djuma, well, basically it will be very easy for us to view them because there are not that many vehicles here. But on Arathusa is traversed by probably 12 or 13 vehicles, and so they will probably all try and get into that sighting before we can, because we weren't there first. So we're not going to go too fast towards that area. And then we've got that yellow-billed hornbill there in the senna bush, and a very noisy francolin behind us. Shut up, I'm in the middle of a conversation here. It's much more polite. Also lovely starling there on the top there, and while we talk about that starling, which looks to be a Cape glossy starling, everyone, you can see that by his yellow eye. James, Richard, you want to know about the wattled starling, and are they still around? I haven't seen any wattled starlings for some time. But they're not migratory, they are nomadic, which means that they can be in and out of the area at all times. But they will disappear for extended periods, James, and we won't see them. Or that lovely kind of whistling call is the magpie shrike. And you may have noticed there that one didn't have sort of looked like it had a scraggly tail. It's probably because it's a youngster from the beginning of this year. There's the starling. Look at that. That's a really lovely picture. Flown off. There, you can hear the magpie shrikes calling now. Beautiful. And that dawn chorus is broken now. It's kind of tailed off. Most of the orchestra's gone for breakfast. Let's go across, see if we can get an update as to what's going on in Arathusa with the wild dog pack. Now they, of course, will be mating soon. They have a 70-day gestation period, and they like to give birth in the middle of winter. And giving birth in the middle of winter, of course, is good for them because none of the vegetation's got leaves on it. That makes it clear, and it allows them to run at will and chase after the things they like to eat. I think I've hit that stump that we just hit probably 600 times. Seems to be a great conflagration of people up ahead, possibly providing themselves with sustenance. That looks like a good idea. Of course, if you do ever come out here, everybody, wonderful to have a morning coffee in the bush. Quite why you choose to have it under the power lines, I'm not really sure, when you have the vast expanse of the Kruger National Park at your disposal, but you know, it's just the way it goes. Any idea, guys, where that pack is at the moment? All right, they're still on Arathusa, everybody. I'm just going to stop here, and I'm going to get an idea of how many people are in that sighting. Station controlling dog sighting. Can I get a line up there? Affirmative. Okay, copy, thanks very much. They're actually still on Simbambili. That means we can't go there, everyone. I'm going to take my jacket off in frustration. Oh. My bottom or gluteal muscles are not in a good way. Superman, I am not. Megan, thank you for your suggestion. You suggest I do some sunrise yoga to warm up. I think that's probably a very good suggestion. I just don't think it's a very good suggestion for me to do it right now, mainly because it would be so utterly embarrassing to show you my level of yoga skills. Right, let's go back towards where those elephants were, and then we'll head towards the south. And while we, of course, are talking about the fact that the dogs will, with any luck, give birth somewhere around here, probably in the middle of June, heading into July, Patty, well, was it Patty in Michigan? Sorry, I've lost the name. Rebecca? It is Patty. Hello, Patty. Again, Patty, you want to know if the whole pack will regurgitate food for the youngsters, or if it will just be the parents. Patty, it will be the whole pack. The whole pack is really good about looking after all the youngsters, and so the whole pack will regurgitate food when they come back to the den. They will share a kill equally, and when they come back to the den, the little puppies will beg from all of the adults, and of course it is only one pair normally that breeds within a wild dog pack, and absolutely what happens is that they will all help the youngsters to come to adulthood, which is unlike it happens in many... Maybe that bird up there, which is unlike it happens in the hyena pack or clan, and indeed many other... There, that one that's just flying over the top of us now, sorry. He's there, right on top of this green tree in front of us. There, right on top, this green tree right in front of us, the little one, or the tallish one. Can you see it? That's it. That's the tree. Just go right onto the top of the tree there. You'll see him. Now, everybody, this is a bird that I thought was quite rare, but in the last 2 weeks I have seen, this is my third sighting of them, and it's a really good one for any of you who are keeping bird lists. He's a sparrow. Used to be called the yellow-throated sparrow, and is now called the yellow-throated petronia. Why he is called a petronia, I couldn't begin to tell you. Very nondescript bird, but most easily noted not by his yellow throat, because some of them don't have a yellow throat, but by that very obvious white eye stripe above the eye. Why he is not therefore called the, I don't know, the white-browed Petronia? Well, that's anyone's guess. This is an amazing sighting of him, everyone. This really is brilliant. He sounds like a sparrow, though, doesn't he? Now, what I think he's doing, he's gleaning for insects there. Largely a seed eater, but he's gleaning for insects. He's looking in amongst the leaves there for insects. And you saw that butterfly maybe fly off. I suspect he's looking for butterflies to eat. Specifically those African migrants, those sort of minty green ones that I've been watching. They're my favorite from the season. So that's the yellow-throated Petronia. I shall show you a picture of him quickly. Yeah, where's my bird book? Yellow-throated Petronia. And he's very like a sparrow. We had an amazing sighting of a sparrow the other day, a house sparrow on Cheetah Plains, sat on the bonnet of the car for some reason. There is the yellow-throated Petronia there. And you can see a very slight sort of tinge of yellow there, but like I say, many of them do not actually have that yellow throat at all. Very nice. Well done, Dave, for finding the yellow-throated Petronia. Okay, let's go back basically towards where the elephants were. If they are not still there, I think what we'll do is head to the south to Treehouse Dam and see what's happening that side, if it's all the same to you. I will keep an eye out on what's going on the radio with the dogs, but they seem to have killed something on Simbambili, which means they're not going to come south, I don't think, anytime soon, or indeed to the east. But it does mean that they're in and around the area, so the chances of us seeing them are relatively high. Now, just to confirm, for those of you who are a little bit confused as to what on earth I'm talking about, I'm using names like Simbambili and Arathusa. Private property laws in the world, as we know, certainly where Western democracy is the order of the day, are very strict. And the landowners around here are very strict about who and what they allow on their properties. And there's all sorts of political machinations about the place. And so we can only go on to Arathusa and Cheetah Plains. And Djuma, obviously, that's where we focus most of our drives. We don't traverse Simbambili, which is just sort of to the north and east of us there. And so as long as there are animals there, we can't go there. But we are in radio contact with many of the guides there. So we can sort of kind of follow if and when the dog pack goes across a boundary. Elephants. Now, there were some angry elephants around. We did hear them shouting, chasing off a vehicle earlier. This doesn't seem to be them. This is a cow walking towards us now. And this herd seems to be quite relaxed. But, you know, over the last little while, the elephants do seem to have been fairly tense with life. And interestingly, many of the bulls seem to be in full must. And that's not usual to me. I don't remember a time where I've noticed all of the bulls in must at the same time. And it will stress the herds out because they're big and they get into the herds and they harass the females, basically. And that will create tension generally. And I can't remember a time, everyone, where the bulls in an area have come into must all at the same time like they have now. I find it amazing. We've got a quite relaxed herd of elephants here, females and youngsters. I don't see a big bull around them, and that's probably why they're so relaxed. This is wonderful. She's just checking us out. She's not the matriarch. I don't think she's nearly big enough, but she'll just be walking close to us to make sure that we are not a threat to her or her herd. Isn't she lovely? She's probably about 18 to 20 years old. She's now standing about 10 feet from us. Very peacefully grazing. And I think she's positioned herself there very intentionally, just to kind of put herself between us, and there are a few calves around here, between us and the calves. There's a slightly younger one here, probably about 11 years old. And there are two young bulls at the back who are having a little bit of a fight, a little bit of ardry-bardry. And I've no doubt that this sort of behavior that you're looking at now, which is totally typical for young bulls and indeed young men, is a result of the fact that the testosterone levels amongst all the male elephants are probably slightly elevated. Why? I don't know. And look at that little chap trying to give his slightly larger friend a bit of a shove in the bottom. Just watch, there's another elephant coming up the road, gliding almost silently. There, that's a big cow. She's moving with quite a speed. Just going to watch her carefully. Ah, that's why. Look what's coming up the road. Massive, massive bull. I'm just going to get into a position, everyone. He's following her. We can actually wait and see what happens here. If he does turn towards us, though, I'm going to move so that if we have to go forward quickly, we can. Yeah, I'm just going to get out of this chap's way, just in case he decides that he doesn't like us very much. Just going to get into a position where we can drive away forward if we have to. We don't want to be reversing away from an irritated elephant. I think he's following that cow that we saw through the bush there. I wonder if she isn't in estrus. The fairly substantial extension between his back legs indicates that she possibly is in estrus. What I don't want to do is split this herd up behind us, so I'm just waiting here. Oh, he hasn't actually turned towards us. It looks like he's turned back towards the cow. Let's go forward a bit. That may well be the same chap we saw, you know, earlier. So much bigger than the cows. And he's gone. He's just melted away. Can you see him, Dave? No. Let's just listen, everyone. You can smell him, though, can't you? Everyone, you can smell that sickly sweet leather smell. I think that's the same bull we had just now that came past us. Oh, that smell is powerful. I think let's turn around and go into the clearing there, because there is a clearing, the herd is heading towards it, and I wonder if that cow that he's following isn't going to go towards that clearing as well. Now, I've never seen elephants mating. I've seen them try before. I've seen males try and mount females, but unless a female wants to mate, it's almost impossible for a male to, he can't sort of force himself onto her because of the way they're arranged. She's really got to stand still and almost reverse into him in order for sort of copulation to take place. Just go in here. Yeah, he's there. Someone's through there. want to get an idea of what's going on before I stop. So we have to move suddenly. We need to make sure that we can. Yeah, the lovers seem to have disappeared into that thicket there. Dave, let's get around these chaps. There's a young calf suckling over here. That very famous greeting you may have just seen there. Just clean the lens quick. The trunk into the mouth. That is a very typical greeting.
You, mate.
Morning, Malum. Any luck with the Impala this morning?
I've lost the secret comm, so we're going to have to stay on public comm, so you'll have to listen to the game drive, I'm afraid. And that's not aggressive at all. It's very typical. Look at the little one trying to get involved on the act there. And every so often I'll keep looking behind us just to see if that monstrous bull doesn't come out. And all around us now, the kind of mid-morning lull is starting to envelop us. There's a quieting of the birds. Dave's taking off his jacket because it's warming up. That's the shaking of the car. And you can hear the elephants very peacefully feeding through the woodland here. There's a wonderful smell. I've driven over some wild aniseed, and so that's kind of infusing what is an already sort of magnificent smelling atmosphere. You can't see this, everyone, but I've just watched, in the distance, I've watched a female elephant go running across the road off to the way away from where you can see, followed closely by a bull, clearly in full excitement. And I think he just caught himself on a tree or a thorn, and it looked very sore. Anyway. This is a young bull trying to show how dominant he is. Oh, I know why I can't hear anything. I'm obviously not plugged in. Ah, Rebecca, have you been trying to talk to me? There we go. I bet you can talk to me now. Sorry about that. There we go. She thought I was ignoring her. And I do apologize if you've asked a question and it hasn't come through. It's because I'm too incompetent to have my earpiece plugged in. Oh, look. And Leo, I think this is a great question, and I don't know if I can answer it. This is too sweet for words. Obviously, the morning has become too exhausting, and so that young bull's decided to have a little bit of a lie down. The little one is coming up to see why. Can he also have a lie down? And Leo, I think this is a great question. Do these elephants remember us? Do they ever try and make friends with us? Do I think that they can remember us as individuals? I don't know, Leo. I like to think that they can. I know that there are elephants that react to some people in certain ways. This is unbelievable, absolutely. I've just been reminded about the yoga suggestion, and yes, that is precisely what this elephant is doing. That was a sort of elephant attempt at a salute to the sun. So, Leo, I don't know. I mean, I think absolutely if you were to be in an area where, you saw them a lot on foot. I mean, I know we've spoken about sort of elephant-back safaris and that sort of thing, and more they're being discredited, those sorts of things. But I have met a chap once who did spend quite a lot of time with elephants in that kind of environment, and they definitely used to recognize individuals. So I've no reason to believe that elephants like this, if we saw them frequently enough, wouldn't recognize us as individuals, recognize the sound of our voices, certainly this different smell that we give off. And it is interesting that elephants will react to different people in different ways, and consistently so. So, I mean, one of the stories I like to tell is of a ranger that I knew at Londolozi. She was a fantastic guide, brilliantly knowledgeable, gentle, kind of just a really lovely person. But elephants didn't like her. They just didn't like her. And she would regularly get charged and revved by herds of elephants. This is wonderful. So that's a young bull there. I'm going to sit down again. And Cheryl, that's a young cow. She's a young cow. I think that's the cow, actually, that walked past us, in between us and the calves earlier. Cheryl, an interesting one about a tracking collar that you've seen on a big cow with Jamie. I have seen that herd, Cheryl. You want to know why it would be that the cow had a tracking collar on her? Well, simply for research. The Kruger National Park is vast. There is an enormous scientific services division that does a lot of work for them, and they, I suspect, would have collared that cow basically to test the movements. It sends a signal to a GPS satellite, which then allows you to track the movements of the herds, and so you can get very accurate representations of how the herds move, as opposed to kind of guessing, which is, I mean, I think a lot of the work that we've done on elephant movement has been guesswork, and certainly with the research on wild dogs that have been collared recently with sophisticated GPS collars, our assumptions and thoughts about how they move have changed completely. This is fantastic. I'm not really sure what the reverse walk across the down the road is, especially with the kind of self-made laurel wreath. She's obviously having a bit of fun. I think that's a youngster that came up to say hello to her. She seems to be lactating. Brent is calling me. Hold on, everyone. Go ahead, Brent. Hey, firm, Brent. I've got an update from Cedric, who said that they are on Simbambili now, and they've gone flat. No, anywhere you like, Brent. Yeah, I've got them now on Impala Road, thanks. Brent's just trying to help out and help us track things. The behavior was quite stunningly amusing. I think I've said this before, and I'll probably say it again another 150 times or so. I think elephants get bored, you know, and I'm sure that's all that was. I think, sorry, let's just stop here. Let's just look at the ones in front of us. Oh, there goes a tree. They're all over here, the elephants, and there is a big herd. And of course, a big herd like this, I mean, Brent saw about 100 of them the other day. It's a number of little herds joining up. Let's just stay where we are for the moment. I think we might get some more good views here. And an interesting question from Bella about male elephants and female elephants. Do males have nipples as well? Yes, they do. They have what we call pectoral mammae. In other words, just like a human being, the mammary glands are between the front legs. And it gives them the most humanoid appearance, I find. That it always arrests my attention whenever I see it. We were talking about must earlier, and we saw that male certainly smelling bad, and then he was chasing the female. And Brian, you want to know about how long that period lasts. Brian, very much depends on the age of the elephant. So a young elephant, in his first must, will normally occur sort of between 18 and 25 years, and that can last probably, his very first must can probably last a few days. And it might not even sort of seem like a must. I imagine it's just a very brief sort of elevation of testosterone, and then it would go down again. But once a bull gets to sort of 40, 45 years old, the must can last 3 months at a time, and sometimes even longer. I have read of must lasting for sort of 9 months, but I've never actually witnessed that myself. But again, it's because, you know, elephants roam widely, so a must bull is not going to hang around in one area for 9 months. Can still smell where that must bull was. And can you sense, everyone, can you sense the change in the atmosphere out here from when we were parked at the hyena den and there was that tremendous symphony of bird song? Now it is much quieter. It's almost like the orchestra is having a sort of brief rehearsal now. Just a few players left. All right, I think we should leave these ellies and let's head down towards Twin Dams and see what's going on there. And Wicked Hand, you say that these things, or this atmosphere and the elephants bring down your blood pressure immediately. I know exactly what you mean. They do. They have a tremendously peaceful effect on me as well. It is wonderful spending time around them. It's healing. And you do hear of people who are, you know, who are ailing with various diseases, and if they do spend time around elephants, especially if they're feeling psychologically bereft or psychologically fragile, it's incredible how time around elephants can genuinely change that and just provide a sense of calm. And I keep thinking about leaving, but then they come down through the bush there, and it's just lovely to see them. Maybe let's sit a few more minutes. It is Sunday after all, Dave, you know. I suspect, Dave, that the big cow there coming into picture on the right is the matriarch of this herd. She seems to be giving direction. She's kind of in the middle. And I'm sure that's her calf behind her there. The young bulls having a box in the background. You can see they all have tusks. Of course, in the Asian elephant, that is different. A male elephant is the only one that has tusks. The females don't have tusks. And sometimes out here, you will find a tuskless elephant, and the females doesn't tend to make much difference. In the bulls, it can make them a little bit more irascible than they would be otherwise, a little bit like short man syndrome, which I unsurprisingly have been accused of having once or twice. And Ellen, you want to know when the tusks come out. Well, the tusks come out normally, if I'm not mistaken, in the bulls at 18 months and the cows at 2 years. I think that's how it goes. Yeah, I think that's what it is. You're welcome to check it up. Check me up if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Ellen in Arkansas, a different Ellen, you're interested in the scent that people give. And we were talking about the different reactions that elephants have to different people. And do I think that the scent that they wear, or the perfume that they give off, I'm assuming you mean kind of a synthetic scent, so something, a cologne or a perfume that you'd spray on yourself. Would they react to that on foot or if you're in a vehicle? I imagine they would, but I wouldn't imagine that they'd associate it with anything negative. I think a lot of their olfactory senses or their smelling has to do with picking up pheromones and hormones, and that in turn triggers a reaction. Also, the smell of human is obviously a smell that all animals out here associate with predator. So I think that the soaps and things that we wear and that sort of stuff, I'm not sure that they do associate that with predator at all. I think it is there's a young one behind her. Let's just have a look at him. I just want to not move because he's being quite confiding about coming up behind a young bull. And so I don't think that they necessarily react to the synthetic smells that we give off, but definitely to the pheromones we give off, our human scent. Absolutely they will react. And look at those droopy eyes, droopy Sunday morning eyes. Beautiful. I just went silent there because I was listening to the radio. And there the doves have started singing again. Well, James Richard, you make a very good point, and it can be extended, I think, to the whole of the wilderness. You say you can't believe that people could look at an elephant like this and think and see only ivory and dollar signs. Yeah, I find that absolutely amazing as well, especially in 2016. The thought of destroying that animal in front of us and putting its head on the wall and thinking that that is something that is appealing, attractive, acceptable in this day and age is absolutely amazing to me. And I mean the same extends to an impala, a kudu, a buffalo, a lion, a leopard. Still, people try and come out here and indeed succeed in coming out here on a yearly basis, and they shoot lions and leopards and take them home and put them on their walls. I mean, it is just absolutely bizarre. and especially if you've spent some time doing what we're doing here. And let no one ever tell you, because there will be various arguments advanced for that trophy hunting is a good thing. Trophy hunting, well, I don't want to get into the debate, but let no one ever tell you that it's fair game, that it's a fair hunt. Now, the high-caliber hunting rifle, you can kill an elephant at 300 meters. That's not fair game. I think we're a little bit stuck. Don't worry, Dave. I'll get us out of here. Told you. Superman. Yeah, that's me. Superman. Okay, we're going to leave these elephants, go down to Treehouse Dam, as I've been promising to do for roughly 2 hours now. We'll see what we can find down there. Now, throughout Africa, there are issues with elephants raiding crops, raiding camps where people live. Certainly when it gets dry around these areas, you know, a lot of the lodge owners water the gardens. And so come September, October, when it's really dry, the elephants often try and get into the camps. And this has given rise to, so that would be in this area. Then, I mean, if you go further up into areas like Tanzania, where the national park boundaries are not fenced like they are here, elephants raid crops often when there's a drought on. And it's given rise to the great school of discovery as to how to deter an elephant from an area you don't want it to be. And Mr. Noss, I think is your name, you say that you've heard that chilies are a deterrent for elephants. Mr. No, sorry. Mr. No, you've heard that chilies are a deterrent to elephants and that it's like a pesticide for them. It can be. I've definitely heard that chili plants in amongst crops will put elephants off those crops. They don't like, obviously, the sensation of burning in the mouth. I don't like it either. I know that many people find the sensation of basically putting out a hot coal in your mouth pleasant. I find it deeply irksome, and elephants feel the same way. But if you were to plant, for example, a small hedge of chilies around your camp, no, I don't think it would necessarily deter the elephants. Certainly one of the most effective ways to get an elephant out of your camp, believe it or not, is to throw eggs at it. They hate the feeling of egg on their skins. They do get used to it after a while, but we for a long time at Londolozi had a problem with an elephant, and the only way, this elephant was a genius. We had an electric fence around the camp, and he used to know exactly which strands were live and which weren't. So if, he'd go along to the neutral strand, very gently put his trunk in between the strands, grab the neutral one, snap it off, and that would collapse the fence, and then he'd walk through that way. Otherwise, what he'd do, here's another little herd here. Otherwise, what he'd do is pick a stick off a tree and then hit the fence until it broke, and that was amazing to watch. Or he would go to one of the pillars where the fence stood, and then he'd push it over and then step over the electric fence. So he was a genius. But you could get him out of camp if you approached him with a tray full of 24 eggs. You had to be quite brave, because the first few that hit him, he just turned around and then he'd kind of almost chase you back. But if you hit him with sort of 12 eggs at a time, he'd turn around and run away, dripping with albumin and yolk. It was very amusing to watch, until the day he got used to it, and then it wasn't so amusing anymore. Lovely to have all the Ellies around, I must say. It really is. And Davina, I was talking about the smell that animals give off and the smell that humans give off and the reaction that animals have to that. And it is well known I think this is where your question stems from, that if a woman is menstruating, a human woman is menstruating, that elephants, especially bull elephants, will often react. They will come and approach the vehicle. And there was that incident the other day, or about a year ago, when Tara Piri, who was a guide here for a little while, presenter, she was approached by an elephant bull at that time of the month. And I mean, she had a fairly scary experience. He wasn't aggressive at all to her, but I mean, to have a 6-ton elephant bull standing above you like that and sort of smelling you is intimidating, to say the least. And it's well known that elephants do, well, I mean, I say it's well known. Have I seen it that often myself? No, I haven't. It is said that elephants will approach a woman if she is menstruating, so that's quite interesting. It wouldn't surprise me, though, simply because, and that wouldn't surprise me if other animals would sense it as well, because their noses are so sensitive to pheromones, and obviously the suite of hormones in a woman's body when she is menstruating is completely different from the suite of hormones in her body at another time of the month. In the same way, a woman that's pregnant has a totally different sort of olfactory effect on the animals and indeed the people around her. And we often, I think, don't realize it, but we absolutely react to those olfactory cues on a subconscious level. That was nearly the aerial. Well done, Dave. I've certainly been fascinated for many years by the different smells that people give off and the different feelings that the different smells of people give me. And I've said this before, but some people just smell wrong. They don't smell bad. It's not like they have bad BO. But when you give someone a hug, hello, I always, it's going to sound horribly creepy. I'm not sure how to make it not sound creepy. But I'll always inhale quite deeply, and you get a sense of whether they smell bad to you or good to you. Whether they smell like home or they don't smell like home. I think we'll leave that. I'm starting to sound like a creep. Dave, you know what I mean? Or do you think I'm talking absolute nonsense? You don't? Okay. Anyway, the last thing I will say on the matter is that human beings are known to pick up, what you do pick up from that smell. It's not just a smell thing. It's an indicator of the parasite resistance of a human being. And if you're picking a mate, you want your mate to have a parasite resistance that is different from yours, so that your child will inherit both and have a wider resistance to parasites than you or your partner do. And that apparently is found out through the olfactory senses. Okay, that's the last I have to say on the matter. Let's drive quickly, so that our smell may dissipate. See, now what happens then, generally, everybody, is when you get yourself tongue-tied and into a slightly awkward topic, you link away to the other vehicle. That, in this case, is not possible. Bright flies are where? There is an Impala running high speed. that's been broken off by an elephant. We have seen an impala, and of course we know that the impala are going into the rut now. They don't like each other very much, the males, and they're herding many females into a herd. And Natasha, you're in Ontario, and you want to know why it is that a male wants to have so many mates. Well, Natasha, it's the same as most mammals. A male will have as many mates as he possibly can, because for him, the investment is simply the time it takes for him to mate. And in the case of an impala, that investment, if you can time it right, is about 3.5 seconds. That's about how long it takes for an impala to mate. Now, the evolutionary advantage of that, of course, is that you can leave lots and lots of offspring. And for the species, the evolutionary advantage for the species is that if you have all this competition between the males, it weeds out the bad genes, and it means that the good genes are constantly perpetuated. Whereas if in other species, and I mean there are pros and cons to the approach, to all approaches in evolution, but in the monogamous species, that isn't the case. So once a female and a male bond, if there is some genetic defect in either of them, that will then be passed on into the youngsters. Whereas in a species like this, there is no chance of that happening, because the males fight each other every single year, and any genetic defect is quickly found out, and only the good genes kind of get passed on. So I hope that kind of answers your question, Natasha. It's a good one, because, and you could probably discuss it for months, because there are many, many species, of course, that have very different breeding strategies. But in the mammals, you will find that by and large, males will try and mate with as many females as they can, unless there is a substantial threat to their youngsters surviving by their not being present. So in an impala herd, whether or not the male survives beyond the time that he mates, there's a wildebeest, it's all happening here, Dave. Whether or not a male survives beyond the time that he mates with the female is immaterial to the survival of the youngster. And you'll find in a situation like that, it's much more likely that the male will have a harem rather than just a monogamous relationship. In a monogamous relationship, the male often is required for the survival of the youngster. I'm just trying to ease my way down here so we can get a look at this wildebeest bull. He's on his own, poor fellow. I often think some of the wildebeest bulls must, or all the wildebeest here must think, what did we do wrong that we weren't born on the plains of the Serengeti? Quite a lonely time for them out here. And they do spend increasing amounts of time with impala because, of course, they provide security. Dave, I don't know if you can see these two beautiful butterflies. Can you see them? I think the car's going to be in the way. You've got them. Oh, brilliant. So we've got two butterflies there, everybody. A painted lady. She's the lovely... sorry, it could well be a he. The painted lady, although called a painted lady, does occur in male and female, is the orange, black and white one, and then in front of that, a totally different species, the blue pansy, which has just flown off. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, I think that's just great. Just two of the species that we get here, and we get many. Very seldom do they sit like that. This is a good time of the day to look at them. It's still quite cool, and so they won't be quite as fast and active as they might be otherwise. And then when it gets a bit warmer, he'll be warming, of course, he or she will be warming his wings. And the hemolymph, I think it's called hemolymph, which is the fluid that keeps those, it's kind of like blood, I guess, that keeps those wings stiff, will be heating up and will allow the butterfly to fly away with that very rapid wing beat that it has, and go and investigate all those flowers, like the ones that are on the right-hand side of your picture there, full of nectar and other things for the butterflies to eat. Marvellous, David. Let us continue on our way to Treehouse Dam. Thank you, Brazos. You say you think I have a oneness with nature. That's very kind of you. I think, Brazos, what you'll find is that we all have a oneness with nature. It's just that some people find it a little bit difficult to tap into. And I think that is a function of our lifestyles. Everybody, just about, though, when they're exposed to an area like this, even if it's just for a second, and even if you, I mean, I've seen teenagers especially are difficult out here sometimes. I mean, I've had I've had guests come on drive before, and young teenagers, they'll put headphones over their ears while you're on drive and listen to music or something while you're driving around this incredible environment. And you want to kind of get on the back of the car and throw them into the bush. But barring those odd exceptions, it's very rare for somebody not to come out here and feel some kind of, and even if that dissipates, it will just, in just about everybody, plant a seed of connection with the wild. But can you imagine coming out here, driving through this incredible landscape, and listening to your iPod? Annie in British Columbia, you're going to get me in trouble here. You say, do I ever see animal attributes in people? Yes, all the time, Annie. Many of the people in camp behave like animals sometimes. I behave like an animal every so often. I certainly ate like an animal last night. I was ravenously hungry. And in all seriousness, absolutely I do. I see many attributes that are a continuation of animal behavior. I don't believe us to be very different from many of the animals. I believe many of the biological drivers that drive animal behavior that we witness here every day are present within us. And the closer you get to human beings as you go through the primates, so the behavior of the animals we see more closely mimics us. So if we look at a chimpanzee, which is about 1.6% different from us genetically, depending on how you look at it, so their behavior will be more recognizable than the behavior, say, of the blue-headed tree agama, which is a lizard. But even the lizard has got similarities in some of the ways that it behaves to human beings. Just trying to think of an obvious example. I can't think of an obvious example right now other than the really obvious ones of eating and drinking and the need for that sort of thing. But if you watch socially, I find watching social interactions, stepping back from a social interaction and watching people, especially if I don't know them, and watching them interact and watching how their biology is a brilliant predictor of how they are going to interact with each other, how size affects the way people react to each other. And that comes from our animal instinct completely. How male and female people react to each other and interact with each other is so often got nothing to do with our cultural sociality. It's just simply to do with the primal drivers that exist in us. And I know there'll be a lot of people that think that's absolute nonsense. But I'm afraid I've made an extensive study of it, and I've made an extensive observations of people having read about human evolutionary psychology and evolutionary biology, and my goodness, I can't see a better way to make sense of the world in which we live right now than that. Anyway, Annie, that could get us chatting for days. Thankfully for you, you only have to put up with me for 3 hours. 50 minutes only. There is a large bird, David. Let us point the camera at that vast bird sitting upon that deadish tree over there. Well, I don't think it's deadish, really. I think it's well dead. I will now consult these amazing binoculars. Now, that bird should not be alone, everyone. The question is why should it not be alone? David, any idea?
Nope.
No. It shouldn't be alone because it is an African hawk eagle, and an African hawk eagle is normally found in pairs. But where Mr. or Mrs. African hawk eagle is, I don't know. I can't tell from here whether that's some... Ooh, going to hunt. Listen, watch. There it goes, across the road. There's the other one coming across the road behind it. The other one was obviously close by. And they do hunt like that, everybody. It's quite clever. They'll put one on top of a tree like that so that all the potential prey, like the squirrels and francolins, will be watching that one. All the while, the other one is kind of slinking in at a much lower angle. It's exactly how they hunt. Guinea fowl, a particular favorite of theirs. We will eventually get to Treehouse Dam, I promise. Now we're into the area, of course, where the great and wondrous Karula has shown us her babies just once. And we're hoping again that she'll bring them across at some stage. I have heard nothing, but everybody has been chasing wild dogs all over the western sector today, so maybe she's around. Wouldn't that be a really special Sunday morning treat? We should have 2 feeds out this afternoon, everyone. We'll certainly for some of the time. We have another camera that we can use. Oh, Lucy in Indiana, a lovely request from you, although I'm not sure how easy it's going to be to acquiesce to. You want a bearded robin for your bird list. Lucy, you might have to come and have breakfast with us today. There is a bearded robin that pops through the camp every so often. I've yet to see one out here, though. The habitat is just not quite right. I suppose on the drainage lines we could see a bearded robin, so I will absolutely have a look out for him. While we drive along here, just let me play you the sound of the bearded robin, mainly because I can't remember the sound of the bearded robin. Bearded robin. David, if you see a leopard and 2 cubs, shout. I'm currently using my telephone, which I know I'm not supposed to while I'm driving. But I think it's unlikely we'll have an accident. Not impossible. Here is the bearded robin's call, Lucy. There you can hear that lovely call. And it mimics other birds. Very subtle, very lilting. Isn't that lovely? That's the bearded robin. I'll show you a picture of him now when we stop on the dam wall. Okay, that's enough. Shut up. Shh. Thank you. We'll stop on the dam wall up here, and I'll show you a picture of the bearded robin. Nothing going on at Treehouse Dam. I was hoping to find 100 elephants or so here. Or just 1 leopard, that would do. Okay. This enormous expanse of water, everybody. A little bit like Lake Michigan. You can barely see to the other side, it's so huge. Well, Dave, I don't know if that's going to be doable for you. Is that going to be too reflective, or can you see it? It's just such a lovely picture. Can you see it there?
Yes.
That's the bearded robin. That's his distribution. But there's a photograph of him, which I didn't take, obviously. That's the bearded robin. very clearly doesn't have a beard, which I think is typical of the ornithologists. And those are his little eggies. 1 inch long eggies. Oh, David, you know what we should show everybody, of course, is my magnificent photograph, don't you think?
Oh, yes.
As I'm the world's greatest landscape photographer. Check out my sunrise shot, everybody. Oh, no, not that one. There we go. Oh, hey. Absolutely stunning. Can you see it at all?
No, but it's a glare.
A glare.
No.
Oh, you'll have to go and check it out on Instagram, everybody. I did put it there. It is this absolutely astounding. Jean-Andre showed me how to do that. You take a totally bog-standard average photograph with your phone, and then you get this very fancy app, whose name I'm not allowed to say live because it's called brand advertising. But you can, and then does that for your picture, and it makes you look like a world-class landscape photographer as opposed to a total idiot. Right, nothing going on here. Couple of terrapins lurking about in the water. Let's go around the corner where hopefully we'll find a leopard and 2 cubs. Or nothing. There's another butterfly here. Can you see it there, Dave? Can you get a picture of it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's a common diadem, everyone. That's the male common diadem, and I told a few of you a little while back that the female looks like a monarch. So it looks absolutely nothing like the male there at all. And that's because she, of course, mimics the monarch in order to pretend to all the potential predators that she is toxic in the same way that a monarch is. It's a brilliant, brilliant biological phenomenon called Batesian mimicry, after Mr. Bates, who I think discovered it. And you'll find lots and lots of creatures out here exhibit what we call Batesian mimicry. That means taking on the coloration of a toxic species even though you're not toxic yourself. And the advantage of that, of course, is that if you're toxic, for example, well, I'll tell you why it happens. So a monarch butterfly eats milkweed, which has cardioglycosides in it, which is not very good for the heart. And the caterpillars eat cardioglycosides from the milkweed. But in order to process those, obviously, you've got to have a fairly sophisticated digestion, and we've been attacked by flies, everyone. You've got to have a sophisticated digestion and physiology in order to process the toxins and then retain them in the cells and make the adult poisonous. Now, it's a complicated process. It's expensive. Much less complicated and less expensive, and rather than doing it yourself, is to just look the same as a species that's poisonous, and without having to go through the trouble of eating the nasty cardioglycosides that exist in the milkweed. And that's precisely what the diadem does, and there are lots of other butterflies that take on the same sorts of colors. There's another waterhole just up here. David, we must have gone past a bush on which these flies spent the evening. They are now everywhere. We might have to do a speed run. Ooh, a young ornithologist's question. Evan, you want to know about the peregrine falcon and how often we see them here. Evan, not very often at all. I will show you what falcon we do get. Most often we get something called an Amur falcon, which occurs in great numbers, and it's now left, unfortunately. It's gone back to Siberia for the course of our winter and their summer into the tundra up there. We do sometimes get lanner falcon. I've seen lanner falcon in this area before. I've never seen a peregrine falcon in the Sabi Sands, though, I'm afraid, Aaron. So the peregrine falcon, I'm sure, Evan, is your favorite because he's the fastest bird alive that we know of. Dives at an astonishing speed. Oh, more elephant. Just a bull through there. You park. I'm not going to follow him. Let me just park in a position where we can hopefully see him. Can you see him, Dave? Not really. Yeah, he's just disappearing through there. And Miss Lynn, you're interested in why there is such a great influx, and do I have any idea why there are so many elephants around at the moment? And I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I think it's really interesting because there's no substantial difference between this region and any other in the Sabi Sands, except perhaps to say that in the Kruger Park, water will dry up before it dries up here in the Sabi Sands. Maybe, I mean, we know there was a drought, but, I mean, that rain did give us some standing water, but the eastern sides of the park got much less rain than the western sides where we are. And so maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just that there's a lot of water. They might also be doing the aerial counts at the moment, which will, of course, result in choppers flying up and down. That'll frighten animals a bit. Maybe that's what it is. Right, let me show you the falcons that we get here for Evan, our young ornithologist. Now, the peregrine falcon unusually seems to occur just about all over the world. There he is. That's the great peregrine falcon. Summer visitor, so we wouldn't find them here at this time of the year anyway, but I've never seen one here. They're not common here. Much more common is the lanner. The lanner falcon there. Much bigger and not so common here, but they are, I mean, common in South Africa. Very similar kind of strategy. And there was one Eurasian hobby, actually, that bird there, flying around recently. Brent saw it on drive. I don't know if he got it on camera, because they obviously are very fast, but it was around for a while, and Brent, he did see it while he was on drive. The most common falcon that we get here is one of these two, the Amur falcon, the eastern, or used to be called an eastern red-footed kestrel, but it's now called the Amur falcon, and that's the most common one that we get here. Right, and they're insect eaters, Evan. They don't eat small mammals normally. They fly around high in the sky, and they catch insects with their feet, feed them into their beaks at the same time, and then carry on going. It's really an incredible thing to see. Right. No leopard here. No tracks of any leopard here. Let's go and check out twin dams. Waterhole to waterhole. It's the way to go. Hi, Lynn. A question I don't really know how to answer. You say, are they not filling the Djuma pan anymore? Lynn, I don't know. I suspect they're probably filling it much less at the moment because there's water in the actual dam. And so for as long as there's water in the dam, I think that there will be very intermittent filling of the pan. Now, we're going to drive quite quickly for about 200 meters in order to get rid of the flies. Hold on. Flies can't keep up with us at this speed, but if you don't keep going for a while, they catch up. That should do it. How's that, Dave? Fly free. It's the only way you can do it. You have to have a long straight road like this. It's impossible if you're on a sort of bumpy game drive road. We get asked this sort of question quite often about the winter coats of animals. and what animals shed their skins or shed their coats during the summer months. I'm assuming, Ramey, you're asking this time, you're in San Diego, and I think you're asking possibly about the mammals, or most likely about the mammals. And the answer is, I suspect all of them, well, those that have fur. Elephants obviously don't have any fur, but the smaller you are, the thicker your coat is going to get in the winter. And I think all of the animals, even the impala and that sort of thing, will have a slightly thicker coat in winter than they will in summer. Now remember, I mean, while we talk about a winter, for us, I mean, winter barely wouldn't register with you because it just doesn't get that cold. About 4 degrees Celsius is the coldest it gets here. That is about 42 or so degrees Fahrenheit. It's really not cold enough to warrant a big, thick, shaggy coat like many of the wild animals will get in North America, and then they shed them off, of course, during the summer months. And that just doesn't really happen here. But it will happen slightly, and certainly domestic animals here, absolutely you notice them. You know, we don't often get to ruffle the sort of fur on an impala, so it's difficult to tell, you know, how thick their fur has got. But certainly domestic animals out here, horses. I used to ride horses, and the horses used to get, especially up in Johannesburg where it does get quite cold, they used to get very thick coats during the winter months and then shed those completely during the summer. Oh, and Randall, you want to know if I'm growing a beard, because we're going into the winter months, and perhaps I'm going to sort of warm my face with a substantial beard. No, Randall, I'm not going to do that. I did it once. I find it so deeply uncomfortable that I don't think I shall ever do it again. Well, not for the foreseeable future. But I have found that what's happened is that as the hair has disappeared from the top of my head, so it has migrated to other parts of my body. And I think many men find that this is a problem. Some of it has unfortunately migrated onto my back, which is a lamentable development in my life. But my beard has become substantially thicker. And so rather than shave it twice a day, which I used to, I've just decided to sort of keep it clipped at roughly the length it is now. So once every 4 or 5 days, I give it a bit of a trim, and then it remains as it is. Yes, sort of like it is now, really. And of course, the other reason to do that is that Jason Statham wears his beard like this. And I mean, who doesn't want to look like Jason Statham? I bet he wouldn't be as stiff as I am after the Superman workout. There are yet more elephants, everyone. 2 youngsters playing in the mud, which is precisely, of course, what 2 youngsters should be doing. 3 youngsters playing in the mud. They're inside a reserve called Little Gowrie, which is where Karula has her cubs stashed. And Kat, you want to know about elephants' ears and if they're as soft as they look. No, I don't think they're soft at all. But leather, elephant leather is very, very tough indeed. And their ears have to be tough, you know, because they use them all the time for the cooling. They're flapping them all day long, walking through thick bush, possibly tearing them on thorns and spines. This is a perfect little scene here of elephants in the shade of giant leadwood trees that have been here since, well, before the private property laws of the white man arrived in this area. So I'm sure they have an amazing story to tell of what this area must have looked like before we arrived. And Brazos, you are watching with your granddaughter, who quite wisely is skeptical of the fact, or skeptical of the notion, that elephants should be afraid of mice. Brazil's granddaughter, elephants are not afraid of mice. That is a story from the cartoons, and I used to ask exactly the same thing of my father when I was a young boy. All right, shall we press on? This herd is now heading into... Oh, no, nearly had a car accident. Morning, Peter.
Morning, James.
How's it going? Good, fine, self?
Good.
Good.
Tingana has been spotted at Red Dam.
At Red Dam now?
Yeah.
Right, I'm on my way.
Okay, but
Yes.
there's that parallel road.
Yes.
Triple M. Go onto that one.
Yes.
On the northern side, there's a little two-track that goes
Okay,
there.
along the northern side of that drainage?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we used to go through Red Dam
Yeah.
to this two-track, so you have to go all the way around.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay.
I'll be on my way at high speed. Have a good day. Did you hear that, everybody? Right, we've got 30 minutes to closing. Tingana's at Red Dam. Let's see if we can get in there. That's on Arathusa, so I don't know how many thousands of vehicles will be trying to get in there, but let's go and have a look-see. That will be a really nice way to close off the drive. I'm just going to prepare myself for the speedy drive. Are you ready, Dave?
I'm ready.
Of course, we cannot drive that fast. We are in a game reserve after all, but we will drive a bit quicker than we would normally. Tingana, for those of you who don't know, 9-year-old male leopard, basically the staple of our male leopard viewing, and he has taken over a vast territory now that includes Djuma, it includes most of Arathusa, indeed some of the areas to the south of us, and all the way east on the Cheetah Plains. As Impala is the cohort with whom he used to kind of split Djuma through the middle with Impala at one stage, but Impala's got a little older and so is struggling to maintain his territory now, which is lamentable. I'm sad I didn't get more time to spend with Impala. 13-year-old male leopard that we have now, and he's my favorite. I just think he's a magnificent old fellow. He's got a wisdom in his eyes. And he's not very big, of course, and that has always impressed me. When an animal, well, I mean, all animals out here, if they want to maintain dominance, have to do so physically, and yet he is a little fellow, and he's managed to maintain a territory for just as long as most male leopards ever managed to. Right, we are going to drive at this slightly unpleasant speed, everyone, so please don't spill your drinks, lift them off, perhaps have a quick sip now and then put them down. I'd hate for you to spill on your lap when we went over a bump. I'd say we've probably got about 10 minutes minimum before we get there. So we'll just have to hold on and enjoy the wonderful feeling of the morning African air, autumn morning African air, flowing over our faces. You can shut your eyes and feel the breeze, everyone. I'm not going to, because then we'll have an accident. Sorry, Tammy in Iowa, the rushing wind over my ears make me struggle to hear your question. Rebecca, you'll have to go again. I shall turn my ear away. Ah. Tammy, a nice one from you about guests and whether they ever start crying when they see animals from the excitement or the wonder of it. Yes, they do. Not always. It's quite rare, but it does happen. And, you know, interestingly, elephants often inspire that. Not from fear. I have seen a few guests cry from fear and irrational terror of something out here. I had an Italian guest once who we were watching a female leopard, a beautiful leopard sighting. She was resting on a log, and I looked behind me, and she was nowhere to be seen. She'd climbed under the seat because she was so terrified. And so that kind of thing does inspire some tears. But elephants often, in a calm sighting like some of the ones we've had here, in people who are either feeling sad anyway or who are feeling emotionally attached to the wild, they will often start to stream tears. It's a very interesting response that some people have to the wild. I had it once. I can't remember exactly what animal I was looking at. I think it may well have been an elephant. And I think I was driving around on my own. I was feeling a bit sad about something or other. And this elephant I saw, and I sat with him for a little while. And eventually this just amazing sense of emotion welled up in me. And I was unable to control the tears flowing from my eyes. And thankfully, I was completely alone at the time. But for the elephant, of course, who told me to stop being such a drip. And then he moved off. Righty, we're not too far now. I'll just get an update, try and get an update from them now. I don't know how many people are going to try and get into that sighting there, everybody, so if we don't get in, I'm sorry, but we should be able to. We are coming to the end of the drive. Sounds quite busy. Stations, is there any space in the lineup for sighting at Red Dam? Okay, copy, thank you. I'd like to take that second standby and confirm best approach. Copy, sorry, struggling to hear you. Confirm that 2 track goes northern side of the drainage or southern side? Copy, thanks very much. Alright, so he says there are 2, we can take what's known as second standby. That means that we're not going to be able to go in immediately. There are 3 vehicles. Oh, shut up! Means there are 3 vehicles there now, 1 waiting to get in, and then we're behind that one. So we'll have to wait for 2 people to leave before we can go. The advantage, of course, is that we can spend as long as we like there. The disadvantage being that we have 25 minutes left. So I'm pretty sure we'll get at least a very short view of him. It's also might be quite a nice idea to find out what happened to the dogs. And Deborah, armchair traveller, you reckon that you would cry on safari. You went to see whales once, you went whale watching, and that induced an emotional response in you that made you cry. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. All right, let's see. I've just got to try and figure out exactly where the sighting is. In here somewhere. But we're just going to you're going to have to give us about 10 minutes, I think, everyone, before we're able to get in there. We made double quick time to get here. Here's a kudu. Sorry, Dave, I've parked you at an amazing angle there. Vernay, as we look at what might be termed general game, it's a kudu cow trying desperately to smell us, opening up her big nostrils and chewing her cud. You want to know what changes the distribution of general game. Is it their, or, you know, what changes their movements? Vernay, it's almost entirely to do with food. So they will go wherever there is good food for them. And then sometimes it will be affected, of course, by their need for cover or open areas. So while you'll find impala are normally around sort of open woodland, in the evenings they'll move into clearings so that they can see what wants to come and eat them. Kudu will generally be found in this sort of habitat, thickish woodland, where they can browse, because they don't graze, they browse. Water also will play a major role in the distribution of animal species, especially those that are water dependent. A kudu is not. A kudu isn't water dependent at all. Just as I say, kudu don't graze, that kudu has been grazing. It's quite odd. Okay, let's just ease forward here. No word on the radio yet as to when we'll be able to get into that leopard sighting, but let's see. Hold on 1 second. I'm just listening to the radio, everybody. Never mind. I hope we can get in there. I'm not hearing a lot of movement at the moment, so we'll just have to do our best. Michael, you're interested in what kind of things you should study if you want to become a game ranger. Well, this question is an interesting one because it depends what you want to do with it. So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I'm not a game ranger, I'm a guide. Okay, I have done game ranging, but I am a guide, so not a game ranger. And he just pulled a nice fist at me, which basically means good luck, Superman. I'm just trying to find out exactly where I'm supposed to be going here. I think it's up this way. So, if you want to be a game ranger basically is somebody who looks after the land, who will make the decisions on what happens with burning regimes, what happens with bush clearing regimes. They'll look after animals if they need to be darted or perhaps even put down. They look after the fencing and the security and that sort of stuff. That's what a game ranger does. A guide does what I do, which is basically to show people the wilderness. I've done both, and they're both completely different sets of skills. In terms of formal qualifications, a sort of general biological science degree will get you a long way to being a good game ranger. I think that's the most important thing to do. A sort of standard issue, generalized science degree is the best thing to do if you want to be a game ranger. Then you can specialize in rangeland management if you like, but you learn basically on the job. But that analytical way of thinking, I think, is a good place to start. If you want to be a guide, your main qualification as a guide is to be a people person. You've got to enjoy telling people of things. You've got to enjoy listening to people and giving them sort of a sense of the wild. And that is a very different suite of skills from those required of a game ranger. And, you know, there's no real formal qualification you need for that. You can do lots and lots of different courses out here if you want to become a guide. Some of them run by absolute charlatans, some of them not so much. Now, this is where we'll turn off the road if we do ever get into the get into the job. So we're just going to stand by here. Oh, we'll go a little bit up the road and find some shade. I'm just going to quickly, sorry, I can see somebody coming out there. And if your question is not being answered, everyone, it's because the game drive radio is going in the same ear as Rebecca's dulcet tones. Station, sorry, can I just have a confirmation of the lineup in Tingana sighting? Okay, copy, thanks. Okay, we're still on second standby. Copy that, thank you. Right, I don't think we're too long from being able to go in there, everyone. I think it... So Elvis is going in, he's the next one. The next time we get someone moves, we'll have space to go in. I think we're going to stay right where we are. Let's just quickly finish that discussion because I know we're not going to have time to kind of go in and spend a long time there. So let's just wait here. We're not far from the sighting. Basically, like I was saying, guiding, game ranging, totally different jobs. And, I mean, you can do lots and lots of different qualifications. You can come out here and you can find any number of qualifications to do out here to become a guide. Some of them will tell you can become a guide in 2 weeks. Others will tell you can only become a guide in a few years. I subscribe to the latter. But, of course, if you're running a business with lots of people coming from overseas, well, then 2 weeks is going to be a good time for you to get somebody in. Right, here comes Elvis. He's coming to the sighting first, and then we will go. Ah, yeah, minjani? Ipukile na hina, hi. Ndikombela undibzele lokuba vafambe kuba anditwi kahle. Okay, inkomo. Alright. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm sure utangena la. Okay, yeah. Kuna nsinya la. So that's Elvis from Jacobin Camp. I don't think we're too long from being able to get in there, everybody, so hold on if you do have other things to do. Quite an interesting little thing here. It's not that interesting, but it's something other than my face. On the tree here, very clearly been rubbed by a buffalo or by a warthog. Down, David. Down the trunk. There we go. That's mud there that's probably been rubbed off by a buffalo, trying to get rid of parasites. Sorry, just hang on a sec. Les, I think you will be behind me, second standby. Sorry, we now have to control the sighting as well, which is not easy. Velma, in Michigan, you were talking about, yes, termites going into trees. Now, we had some wonderful examples on quarantine the other day with termites climbing into trees and covering the trunks in mud. And Velma, you want to know if that is still ongoing and if it's changed. It hasn't changed, it's definitely still ongoing. And why it's happening, I don't know. I've never seen it happen before to the extent that it has. All of the trees there, the marula trees, everything except, I think, the silver cluster leaf trees are being covered on quarantine clearings by the termites. And I can only think that's because they've run out of food to eat on the ground. So they're now going for the kind of living stuff. Some of the trees will succumb. Most, however, will be termite resistant enough not to have to worry too much about it. Let's have a look at this ecosystem here. So we've got a whole ecosystem on this termite mine. I'd love to get out of the car and show it to you, but unfortunately, I then will not be plugged into the radio, and that'll be a disaster. So we've got the grasses. Let's try and find how many species we have on this termite mound. We've got the feathered chloris, obviously, which we looked at today, Chloris roxburghiana. There are 2 species of raisin tree, or gruvia. Dave, the right-hand side of the picture there, that's called, you can see it's got a sort of square trunk. You know what, let me just turn off the secret comms, then we'll be able to hear the radio anyway, and I'll be able to show it to you. Put the radio there. It's not particularly gentlemanly that nobody's left that sighting yet, I must tell you. Anyway, so it goes. Oh, you can see the way I walk now. This is called the Gruvia flavescens, or the sandpaper raisin, and you can see that the stick is totally square. See that? That's an easy marker. Then we have another raisin over here, and this is called the silver raisin. No, it's not. It's called I think it's called the bicolored raisin, Gruvia bicolor. You can see it's very pale silver on one side and bright leathery green on the other. This is the kind of thing we have to do when we're waiting to get into a leopard sighting, of course. And it kind of builds the excitement. That tree there is called a dwarf boerbein. Now, we've seen in beautiful examples. Excuse me, I'll try and get up there. We've seen stunning examples of the weeping boerbein. Much bigger example of this kind of a tree with beautiful red flowers. Anyway, so this whole termite mound is an ecosystem that functions almost on its own. And it's all brought about by the millions of termites that live underneath the mound. Isn't that nice? I can hear the radio talking a little bit. I don't think... Oh, here we go. That might be good news. Oh dear, rubber's come off here. There we go. No, it's not good news yet, everyone, I'm afraid. This is dreadfully awkward. We've got 10 minutes. Oh dear. I'm just going to drive a little bit forward.
Station coming?
Brian, you're interested in why we wear green and brown. Brian, we wear green and brown because it's fashionable, to be honest. People would like to tell you that it's because it's neutral coloration and because we need to be camouflaged from the animals. Basically, it is fashionable and it blends nicely sort of into the environment. Does it serve a camouflaging purpose? Almost certainly not. I suppose a hat like this might be slightly camouflaged, but the general khaki, that kind of pale green khaki, is almost as obvious as wearing white out here. So that's really not very camouflaged at all. This green's not too bad, but it also looks very smart, don't you think? I think it looks very smart. Dave's also in a very smart green t-shirt and khaki pants. But some of the uniforms of the guides that I've seen out here look fantastic, but they stick out like a beacon through here. And if you really want to be camouflaged out here, the best thing to wear is probably grey or a pale blue colour. So it's just become tradition that people who work in the bush wear either a green or khaki or brown. Does it make a difference to our game viewing? I don't think so. If I was to wear bright orange, though, on camera, you'd probably think it was a little bit off. I'm fast running out of things to talk about as we sit here. Oh, come on, let me in.
Also keep coming. I'm leaving this one to
Here we go. Here we go.
I'll be unlocked in the place for you and James.
Copy, thank you. I'll be making my way in there.
so I'm also busy making my way out of the lot.
Here we go, chaps. Good news.
Copy on this one, open. Let's go 5.
Hear vehicles coming out. This is great news, everyone. We're going to get maybe a 5-minute viewing of Tingana, but at least we'll get a look at him. Afshin, good morning. How's it going? Good.
You got to interview David again.
Yeah, we're going to interview him. Hello. Hi, me Johnny Kwalan. Here you go. Keep behaving yourselves. Well done. I always like to tell people on safari to behave themselves, mainly because, well, they just, sometimes they see it as a joke, and other times they look at me as though I'm mad, as if, you know, why would they be misbehaving? And then some others will panic that they're doing something wrong, that they've broken some kind of safari etiquette, invisible safari etiquette guide, which they never have. Right, we're nearly in. Watch your head. Cheryl, you're interested in the age at which you're allowed to become a guide, and if there's a minimum or maximum age. There's no maximum age, there is a minimum age. You're not legally allowed to be a guide in South Africa before you're 21 years old, because that's the year at which you achieve your majority, and the year at which, of course, you can be sued as an adult. No, you can be sued as an adult when you're 18, I think, but you can't be under 21. Just keep an eye on Dave, both sides of the road here. Oh, here we go, here we go, here we go. Just go around the other side there. I think he's probably lying flat in the shade here. Beautiful, really warm autumnal day. Oh, he's the other side of the vehicle. There he is. Wonderful. I'm not sure we're going to get much more of a look than that of his back end. Okay, that's our first view, everybody. Tingana male leopard. Yeah. Okay, okay. Elvis says we'll get a better look if we go around this way. He says there is space this way. And so there is. We're going to get a great view of his face. There we go. Hello, old fella. And I say old fella purely with affection. He's not old. Davey looks happy to see you again. Except now you've bored him to death, so he's gone to sleep. Well, this is a good way to end our drive, everyone. And we were talking about the coat that animals get. I imagine that Tingana will get a slightly thicker coat as the winter progresses. But that lovely kind of leopard coat, which always looks like, especially on the stomach, you would like to go and have a lie down with him or a cuddle with him. I think that it'll probably just get even softer and more luxuriant as the winter goes on. We have 4 minutes left, everyone, so let's just enjoy Tingana for those last few minutes. As I said to you, his territory is expanding. Oh, he's got an injury. You see that, Dave? Back left. You might just be able to see this kind of twitch there. Is that, are you at max? There, yeah, there you can see it. You can just see it there. I do often wonder what these leopards think when they see us driving about the place. A second. And parking, they park next to him, then leave him, and park next to him. Then. So Linda, I mean, we know that he did have an injury. Whether that's the same injury or not, I don't know. That one looks quite fresh. And you want to know if he's healed up. Well, Linda, I would say that he has healed because he's definitely fed since we last saw him. Whether that's the same injury or not, I don't know, but it's certainly not affecting him to the extent that he's unable to hunt or survive. Now, just feel the peace, everyone. In these last few minutes, just try and absorb the incredible peace. Hear the doves, hear the larks calling, and see the gentle rise and fall of that leopard's stomach. And the unfortunate yelling of people in the background. All right, everyone, that's going to be pretty much it from us today. I must thank you very warmly for bearing with us. A little glitch in the beginning of the drive, and thank you for all talking to us and generating such a wonderful conversation during the day. Nice to work with you again, Dave. Nice to have you back. Well done. Very nice khaki outfit that you have on. And big thanks, of course, to Rebecca in the final control with Louise, who's also back from leave. We'll see you this afternoon, hopefully with 2 feeds at 4 o'clock. We'll see you then. Thank you, and bye-bye.